The US-Armenia relations have taken an interesting turn recently. Strategic partnership followed by a Trump-brokered peace agreement pre-signature. Now TRIPP, the Trump route for international peace and prosperity, with a preliminary $145 million allotted to its construction. These are bricks in building stability in South Caucasus. But the processes are fragile. Baku is maximally demanding, and things could fall apart unless the US administration watches over closely the stability they have helped birth. Ex-co-chair of the Armenian Assembly of America, Anthony Barsamian, sits down with the Voice of Yerevan for an insight from the inside of America. Thank you for joining the Voice of Yerevan.
Asri, it's been some time. Nice to see you again.
A peace agreement was recently pre-signed between Armenia and Azerbaijan under Washington's Mr. Trump's auspices. We have seen Kremlin mediation fail before with Baku. How reliable is Washington mediation? Will this time the peace agreement actualize?
Well, we were encouraged by the meetings in Washington on initialing the agreement. Let's be fair. This is the first step of a peace process. It's a good step. I know you were there. You were in the White House, and you asked a great question. So thank you for that, and we'll talk about that. The real issue now is the Armenian Assembly and the work that we do is we try to build U.S.-Armenia relations. In doing that, the peace agreement is a first good step. So we're here in Yerevan to understand better what are the parameters of the agreement, what are the funding mechanisms, what's going to happen with the transit route that goes through Armenia. People don't quite understand what's coming through. It's not necessarily a road, and it is a transit route of energy, a rail line, and then soon to be a road. But there are already roads. There's roads that go through Iran. So roads have always existed to Nakhichevan and off to Turkey. The big question here is, what is the peace dividend? Will Turkey open the border with Armenia? They're leaning that way, and that's encouraging. Will Azerbaijan truly want peace? I personally think that President Aliyev never wanted peace. He just wanted the image of a peace initial agreement. Let's see if he'll sign the actual agreement. I think Prime Minister Pashinyan is ready for peace. He's set the table for peace, but I don't think that the Azeri rhetoric is peaceful. He is not releasing the prisoners. Huge mistake. And number one, he would have to release all the prisoners, including the leadership of Karabakh Artsakh. He would also have to allow for right of return of those Artsakh people to their villages and homes. Under international law, once there is peace, people have the right to go back to their homes.
The Armenian authorities are very careful with humanitarian issues. Armenian PM warned that NK conflict started as a humanitarian issue. And during his speech at the Parliamentary Assembly of the European Council, Pashinyan said NK Armenians should settle in Armenia as Armenian citizens, in the hope to prevent Azerbaijan's continued claims of the return of Azeri refugees. While on the surface, this might seem a humanitarian measure, bringing it up in the midst of a yet fragile peace agreement, it could spiral things downward. Building trust, revisiting state policy on ethnic discrimination, uprooting hatred, Baku has a long way to go for peaceful resettlements. Requiring it right now, when the blood in the 44-day war has not dried on the ground, sounds more like an attempt to sabotage peace. The pre-signed peace agreement latches on Mr. Trump's authority. Do you believe that Washington will be policing over the implementation of the peace agreement?
Should they be doing that?
I think so. I think in this case, look, we understand that Armenia has relations with all of its neighbors. It has relations with Russia. It has relations with Iran. It has good relations with Georgia and Iran, of course. But it doesn't have relations, really established relations, with Turkey and Azerbaijan. The only way that's going to happen is with outside intervention. As you said, Russia has been trying it for years. It did not happen. Under the auspices of the OSCE, Russia, France, and the United States, it did not happen. This is the one time that it is happening, and I believe it's because the U.S. president has put his effort into this. I heard that even today there is a photo of President Aliyev, President Trump, and Mr. Pashinyan in the Oval, meaning that he's committed to this peace.
He's watching over.
That's right. And your question in Washington was the right question. You asked Mr. Trump, will the president of Azerbaijan sign a peace agreement? Do you believe it? And then Mr. Aliyev stepped in, the president of Azerbaijan, and said, I will not work towards moving backwards. I will move forward. If that is true, then the mechanisms for peace have to be established, meaning we would have to not only have peaceful, open borders, we would have to have delineated borders with no Azeri troops in Armenia. We would have to have immediate release of prisoners, including the political prisoners. We would have to have open borders for people to go back to their homes in Artsakh. Those are the things, those are the elements. If you remember, Secretary of State Rubio at the beginning said there is an opportunity for peace if there is a just and durable peace. Just and durable means that Armenia feels secure, because this is all about security. And the Armenian Assembly, that is our number one focus for Armenia, is its security. So anything we can do for military assistance, anything we can do to build relations with Europe and India and other countries, that is what the Armenian Assembly is interested in. We have to build a peaceful Armenia in the region, but in order to build a peaceful Armenia, you need partners. And we do have partners. We have Georgia, Iran, now we need Azerbaijan and Turkey.
A translation of what peace means to Armenia is necessary. Stability should take on clear outlines. Open borders with Turkey and Azerbaijan, the withdrawal of Azeri troops from Armenia's territory, these are essential. The humanitarian issues come next. The Armenian PM's approach is, let's have the peace deal first and negotiate about the rest on the go.
I was actually very disappointed that they released the 907 sanctions. I think under the Biden plan, the package was that they would initialize, but no sanctions would be lifted until after ratification.
On the other hand, we always had the sanction in place, but what was happening is Azerbaijan launched war in NK, ethnically cleansed NK. So what has been the practical benefit?
You're right, Asri. The darkest moment for Armenians was when the U.S. government drew a red line that Azerbaijan will not go into Artsakh, and they did. And then nothing happened. And that's where I think the American administration really dropped the ball in the previous administration. When Yuri Kim said in front of Congress, there will be no aggression, and there was aggression, what was the result of that? There was no result other than re-implementing the sanctions under 907. So unless you have a few sticks, you can't offer just carrots. I believe President Trump is not a light leader. He's a strong leader. So he will implement this plan if he truly believes that this is in the best interest of his administration's efforts. They put a lot of time into this. So that being said, I believe that final ratification may happen. But do I think that President Aliyev will ratify? I don't think so. I think he'll delay to the end of the Trump administration.
Netanyahu recently recognized the Armenian genocide in a very few words, though, during an interview. Does this recognition come at an opportune time, considering that Armenia-Turkey relations sent out a signal of improvement, although a cautious one?
That's a good question. So we the Armenian Assembly always pushed for human rights. We lead with human rights, genocide recognition. Why? Because it builds security for Armenia. And also, without mass killings, it's helpful to every country, obviously. That one was a curveball. And I think, unfortunately, and we have very, very good friends in the Jewish community in America that we work with day in, day out. The Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, in this case, I believe it's the fact that Turkey closed its airspace, closed its ports. He felt it necessary to take a shot back at Turkey. That's not how we lead. We'll take it. We like when presidents acknowledge Holocaust and genocide. Obviously, when President Biden acknowledged the Armenian genocide, we felt honored that he did that. But that's not where the power is. The power would be if the Knesset passes a resolution to recognize the Armenian genocide. Similarly, the U.S. Congress, House and Senate, a few years back, passed a resolution to formally recognize the Armenian genocide. So whether President Trump doesn't use the word or not at this point, or the next president, it doesn't matter. It's been in the record of Congress, House and Senate passed a resolution. As those of us, let me speak a little further. My son lived this last year in Jerusalem, and the Israeli people, the citizens of Israel, both Jewish and Arab, are wonderful people. It is an amazing place. But those of us who understand recognition of genocide know that the Armenian genocide has been recognized largely because the Holocaust scholars made sure that it was recognized. Jewish scholars always push for recognition of the Armenian genocide. So when my good friend Nadav Tamir came to Armenia, he said, "I'm ashamed that my government has not recognized the Armenian genocide." Or when Michael Tickner of the American Jewish Committee, the head of the American Jewish Committee, says Christians have a place in Jerusalem and in Israel. We want good things to happen. Unfortunately, we are deeply saddened by what's happening in Gaza, and people who are ancestors, my grandparents, your great-grandparents, grandparents, when we are ancestors of the legacy of genocide, we can't stand by and not say something has to change here. So when we see the Prime Minister of Israel recognize the Armenian genocide, we want to see some acts that demonstrate his sincerity. He needs to come to Armenia. He needs to stop selling weapons to Azerbaijan. He needs to build economic relations with Armenia. He needs to work in the family of genocide and Holocaust that we all understand clearly, and I am sure he understands it very clearly as well.
The Armenian government has pivoted policy 180 degrees, basically. How do reconciliation attempts, strategic partnerships that are being signed, the whole political philosophy of moving forward rather than dwelling in the past align with the diasporas, the lobby groups' ideology, considering that the diaspora has for a long time linked their identity to genocide?
That's a great question. Again, our work in the diaspora is not just genocide. Armenian Americans are advocates. People confuse lobbying with what we do. We are public advocates. We educate Congress. We work with Congress. On this account, the genocide issue is largely been acknowledged, certainly in the United States and internationally. So when Turkey says, drop your demand to Armenia for genocide recognition, it's not an Armenian demand anymore. It's an international recognized issue at this point. More people in Turkey recognize the Armenian genocide than not. They know it happened. But certainly people outside of Israel, outside of Turkey, these countries, they all know it happened as well.
The question is, how does genocide recognition help today's Armenia?
It builds security for Armenia. When you have mass atrocities of people, how do you engage with countries that have committed mass atrocities and have any level of trust? There is pragmatism between countries. So I think Prime Minister Pashinyan is being very pragmatic right now. He's building strategic relations with the United States. He's building relations with European countries. He's even building relations with India and China. This is I give him high marks for that. That is what you do when you're a leader of a country. But we, as Armenian Americans, are in a different position. All we're laser focused on is the security of Armenia. We care about the children in the south, in Kapan, in Goris, and in the north. We care about those young children on the border in the Lori region and the Shirak region. Those are the places, when I drove south on this trip and saw how close we are to Azeri positions, our Armenian military positions, I said there needs to be peace now because they're right on top of each other. That being said, the Armenian Assembly is focused on security of Armenia.
In small, cautious steps, bilateral relations seem to thaw. Azerbaijan and Turkey representatives visited Armenia during NATO conference. High-level meetings between officials are more frequent now. Technical agreements were reached during the latest meeting of special representatives. But the border closed by Turkey in 1993 in solidarity with Baku is still as closed as ever, and the ball is in Baku's court again. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkey, Hakan Fidan, said when the final signatures are placed on the Armenia-Azerbaijan agreement, they will also quickly normalize relations with Armenia, and even mentioned a possible date, the first half of the next year. Ex-Minister of Economy of Romania, Varuzhan Voskanyan, shares his insights on possible developments in the region. Mr. Voskanyan, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're just back from the Margara checkpoint. We've witnessed only cautious technical agreements between the representatives of Armenia and Turkey when the latter was in Yerevan. How would an actually open border reflect the interests of both regional and extra-regional players?
First of all, I think that one of the most important objectives for Armenia is the connectivity. In 2013, when I was Minister for Economy in Romania, I came here and I initiated and I signed with Armenian partners a partnership about economic cooperation. But the problem with that connectivity was very difficult to be done between Romania and Armenia. And I understood that this is one of the main issues Armenia has to carry out in the next future. And for that, it's very important to open the borders and to create the possibility for Armenia to contact in the same time Central Asia and why not China from the eastern part, and on the western part, of course, Europe through Turkey and through Georgia. In Margara checkpoint, I understood that Armenia is open to that, and Armenian commitment is strong. Armenia is completely prepared for that. Is prepared with a checkpoint, with border guards, with everything. And we gave a very positive approach about that. And we expect from the Turkish side to do the same. But my personal opinion is that Turkey is still hesitating and maybe they are waiting how to be solved the problem of between Armenia and Azerbaijan, to be signed a treaty between both countries. I think that that project concerning the crossroad for peace proposed by the government of Armenia could be a good basis, taking into account the principles. I mean, the improvement of infrastructures, the exercise of sovereignty, and the jurisdiction of every country on that, and in the same time, a project which could join all the neighboring countries in a sort of reciprocity. And we hope that in the next future, Turkey share the principles of the crossroad for peace.
Connectivity is the meat of the pre-signed agreement. The EU plans to expand connectivity, linking European markets to Central Asia through the Middle Corridor. Armenia could and should become part of the Middle Corridor. Unblocked communications would integrate, well, the interests of regional and extra-regional powers. The US invests $145 million in the construction of TRIPP, or the Trump route. But on international platforms, Baku uses terms for the pre-agreed in Washington route that imply, or at least are perceived, as a territorial claim against Armenia, instigating more mistrust in good intentions.
Mr. Voskanyan, truly the ball is in the court of Turkey. We have recently witnessed a breakthrough in Armenia-Azerbaijan relations when the peace agreement was pre-signed in Washington. What does it take? What kind of final push does it take for Turkey to open the border with Armenia?
I have to say something strange. It is a different game with two balls. One ball is in a court of Turkey and another one in the court of Azerbaijan.
Or would you say that this ball is also in the court of Azerbaijan?
Because this is my personal opinion. Don't take it officially. But my personal opinion is that the master of the key in this game is Azerbaijan. I mean, Turkey is waiting for the signals coming from Azerbaijan. Turkey doesn't want to, I don't know how to say, to upset the Azerbaijan authorities, making steps ahead without waiting for the decision of Azerbaijan concerning the treaty. And why I say that? Because my feeling is that Azerbaijan is not prepared to sign the agreement with Armenia. Azerbaijan looked for different preconditions to create obstacles on that, and
why pre-sign it then if you're not planning to sign?
I think that Azerbaijan tries to increase the price. I'm an Armenian. I know how the negotiation are making. Maybe Azerbaijan force a little bit for increasing the price, for getting what Azerbaijan needs. I mean, across through Armenia, but under the control or partial control of Azerbaijan, but Armenia couldn't agree such a solution. Armenia is following the proposal of President Trump, that TRIPP, I mean the road for peace and for prosperity, and that project TRIPP is based, first of all, is a project between United States of America and Armenia, because the territory is an Armenian territory, and it's difficult to figure out how United States could negotiate on the territory of Armenia with another countries. So America respect the sovereignty of Armenia and try to implement this project. Concerning this project, he has to be based on the sovereignty of Armenia and of the complete jurisdiction of Armenia.
This is what they signed under, but the 145 million has already been allotted by the US government, or promised, as far as I know. Would you say that the US is investing, not being sure that the border will open, because it takes for the border to open, for TRIPP to function?
One of our discussion was ambassador of the United States, another one was ambassador of France, ambassador of the European Union, and the ambassador of the United States told us about the intention of United States not to wait the final decision of Azerbaijan, but trying to convince Azerbaijan to follow the project as it was drafted in Washington on 8th of August. So you're very right. America doesn't want to waste the time. They gave this financial support of 145 million euro, and this support will be followed by others. Don't forget that such a road involves, in the same time, digital devices, railways, and so on. But in the same time, it's very important to say that this is not only an American project. I mean, America intends to involve other companies too, including, of course, Armenian companies on that. It's not the United States doesn't want to put a control on that. It's a sovereignty of Armenia, and that sovereignty will be respected.
And it's also economic investment, and we know that the U.S. usually does defend their economic interests.
Astrid, such a step, it's contributing to another image for Armenia, to imagine of a stable country, a peaceful country, a country with atmosphere of security without any doubt. This is the reason why in the last 6 months the number of tourists coming in Armenia was higher than anything in any other period in the last years. It means that the image of Armenia was improved because this statement made in Washington. It's very important to know that United States trusts in the commitment of Armenia to contribute to the peace in the region.
Infrastructure is the meat of the agreement that was made, the pact basically, in Washington very recently, and we know that connectivity will either make it or break it. The Armenian government has presented the Crossroad of Peace initiative. Does it reflect the interests of regional and extra-regional players? How exactly?
The government of Armenia understood that for let me say, our country is a very crucial moment now. Because the reality around Armenia is very fluid, and there are a lot of combination made around us. Armenia is interested to cooperate with China, with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Is very interested to enlarge the cooperation with Central Asia and to have a connectivity with that region. Is very interested to enlarge the cooperation with the European Union, because the possibility to receive the status of candidate is based, of course, on the enlargement of the cooperation. All of that needs connectivity, needs roads, needs railways, needs a good flights, and I'm very glad to say that, for example, with Romania in October we have finally a direct flight between Yerevan and Bucharest, and the vision about the development of infrastructure and of connectivity, it's following the principles of sovereignty, of respect for every country, to define the national interest of every country, and of course the reciprocal advantage.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.